the fact that it's a playoff week and we've spent the vast majority of this week talking about firing the coach, talking about the quarterback being broken, talking about the team being broken. And I made this joke yesterday, but it feels like we're eulogizing a season, and they have a freaking playoff game coming up, John. It is a strange feeling right now as an Eagles fan, but I want to dig into that today. I want to know, like, with the feel around, it almost feels like it's over, like it's done. The season is over. Is it though? Like, is there any reason for hope right now? Is there a way to kind of look at this from a different perspective and say, maybe we are being too negative. Maybe we're going too overboard with the team, and we'll get into a lot of it. There are a lot of theories about why maybe they could, I'm not going to say completely flip a switch and win the Super Bowl, but flip a switch maybe and be a much more competitive team than we've seen them as they ended the season. John, where do you stand on that concept?
Oh man, Jimmy, I want to believe so badly in Ocho Cinco, who says that we can flip a switch. I want to believe
playing possum.
Yeah, I don't trust
that might be a little far.
Possum. That's I've been waiting for it all year. We all have, and I do think if they were capable of flipping that switch, it would have improved in the last month and a half. I mean, we would have preserved some dignity. That last month and a half was extreme. I do sometimes get conflicted, I guess, when I take a look at that Week 3 tape against Tampa. You know, like that does stick out. It looks different. That was our team. They look different, more juice, just more burst. We did run it 40 times, dominated Tampa, blew them off the football. I mean, like 5 yards off the football at the snap, and DeAndre Swift's out there having a field day. I know that type of performance should be in there somewhere because it was there in September.
It's those same guys who did.
Yeah, it was there
against that same opponent.
If we call the run, call the right runs. Remember, we ran it 40 times. Call the right runs. Have a real plan against the blitz, which I haven't seen yet this season. Simplify our defense so everyone knows their job and their teammates' jobs. And, yeah, it is possible to flip a switch. I'm saying it's improbable, but it's possible. I just, no way in the world am I counting on that. Let's plain and simple. Our team proved ineptitude on the field for the last month and a half. It has been a message. The message that they're sending is that they are likely confused. And let's be realistic. It's probably just the teaching period. I've come to this point where I think we all realize we don't always understand what Nick is trying to tell us. If these players don't understand what Nick is trying to tell them, that becomes a problem, especially when it looks like they don't understand what Nick is trying to tell them out there on the field, when our defense doesn't know their gaps, when they're not sound, when our offense, when they're breaking down against the blitz. It feels like, man, we're at a real disadvantage in terms of the coaching. I think that the messages that are getting across are confused. Do you feel, Jimmy, like some of these more advanced concepts are likely to be communicated effectively by this staff? Like, I don't. I don't think it's realistic to be sitting here watching 17 games, 18 weeks of football, expecting change, and then just being pantsed when we don't get change, and then all of a sudden expecting it in the postseason. Like, I think that might be a little foolish. I think that's my inclination to believe when I watch that Week 3 game. Like, hey, that's in there. Why shouldn't I assume they can replicate that? Well, man, it's been a long time, and we've really strayed from, I think, our initial point of domination, our initial point of focus, our initial plan. It's just not anything like that right now.
215-592-9494. Let me throw some positives at you. And look, I am fighting my natural instinct right now because I'm with you. I like what I've seen from this team the last 6 weeks. It's hard to just imagine that we're going to get something different. But to the point you made, let's start with the tape. Those players are watching the tape of that game. They're watching them.
That really
beat
does matter.
The crap out of this exact team they're about to play. I mean, we're talking about a team right now, an Eagles team that needs confidence, right?
Yeah.
They need something.
And they're getting it by watching that tape.
They have to.
The tape is reinforcing a positive. They are dominant physically against these same guys.
Same guys.
Like Vita Vea. He's
Yeah.
out there, and they're pushing him around.
So they
you
know
can
that
see
they can do that, which
Yeah.
I think for this specific group right now really matters. Let me throw
I
a couple
do
other
too.
things at you. Health. They're as healthy as they've been all season, as crazy as that is. Like Darius Slay coming back. That has been a massive thing for this defense. Whether or not we like what he says off the field and all that, like the dude is easily the best cornerback on this team, and that has been a massive problem for this team. So I think getting Slay back's help. Devontae, it looks like he's going to play. AJ, like everyone's kind of back. So I think that's something that we can. Avonte Maddox is even back. Like that's something positive. The talent. Like as much as this Bucs team, I agree with you, I think is underrated from a talent perspective. They have some really good weapons. They got some nice players on defense. You mentioned Antoine Winfield. He might be the best safety in football this year. Like there's a lot of talent there, but the Eagles are more talented. They are a more talented football team. They have a better quarterback. They do have better wide receivers. Even as good as their guys are, ours are actually better. You know, they have a better tight end as good as Otten is. Goddard's significantly better. They have a better offensive line, noticeably better when they're playing their best. So I think from a talent perspective, you can say, all right, this Eagles team is more talented than the Bucs as they go in. The history. Look, we've seen as much as it doesn't feel like it. I remember being there in 2017. I remember Carson Wentz going down and us seeing Nick Foles play and say, welp, that was a cool little run we had. And then we won the Super Bowl.
And there was no way in my mind it could progress any further than that.
And we've mentioned it this week, that a specific example of a coaching staff changing midstream and completely changing what they do and in a way simplifying things somehow, where I think that could be something interesting to point to for this team is maybe get back to the core of what you do a little bit more with the RPO type stuff, similar type of thing. But then 2018 again, that season was
we need to
over.
get back to RPO stuff
Exactly,
more. I think we've
right?
gotten so far away from it, maybe just to protect
That was
Jalen.
the offense.
But
Remember, the camera sitting here being like, that's the best that anyone's ever done it. And it feels like they almost never do it, at least at the same level they used to. So that's the thing for positivity. And then look, as much as, and we'll get into Dallas Goedert's comments and the stupidity, I'm sorry, of them and him doubling down on it. But look, this is the first game in 6 weeks that
very forthright.
That has desperately mattered. This is the first time this team, it's really win or go home for them. They've had some big games, but this is like if this team has any chutzpah, any fire left in them, it's going to show up on Monday night. So I do think there are things you can point to, John, and say, and again, I'm not saying I think they're going to win this football game.
Yeah.
But I do think you can look at the situation they're in and maybe say, all right, maybe we've gone a little too far with all the negativity that we're wrapped up in the moment of these 6 weeks and not kind of see some positives in the future.
It's really a stretch. Like what we're doing with these positives, it is a real stretch. And I appreciate that you're stretching so much, Jimmy, because there are reasons. There is some really good play in week 3 against this exact team. But, man, I do get sick of the excuses. And I do get sick of the double speak and the talk that goes nowhere. And it feels so fake. I get sick of the reality of our situation. Like we can try to feel good. We're 1-5 in the last 6. They're 5-1, and so it does feel like that they're on a different trajectory. They didn't look good last week.
Nope.
But remember, I think they were also having a little bit of what we were having.
They were trying to get into the
just
playoffs,
wanted to get off the field.
Yes, win the game, and that was really all that mattered for the Bucs. I don't put too much on that Panthers
I don't
game,
either.
but I will put on the fact that I mentioned yesterday that their best win is the Jaguars, probably their next, maybe the Packers. Like they have 2 wins against winning teams. They beat the Saints earlier in the season, so those are their 3 best wins this year. So I mean, as much as we've killed this, and it's a different team. I mean, the Eagles beat the Chiefs, they beat the Bills, they beat the Dolphins. I mean, they have some big. They beat the Cowboys. Like they have some big wins on their resume, even though it hasn't looked like that team
since the last 6 weeks. They've scored 22.7 points a game. We've scored 20.5. So that offense is outscoring ours.
which is not great.
The biggest problem, this is so impossible for me to overlook. Our opponents over the last 6 weeks have scored 30.3 points per game. There's 16.
Why'd you have to mention the defense, man? All right, I'm trying to get through this without
Think
thinking about how bad
how
the defense
crazy
is.
that is. 30.3 points a game our opponents scored. There's 16.3 points per game over the last 6 weeks. That's just impossible to unsee. It's impossible to forget how inept our defense has looked for a long time.
No doubt.
Meanwhile, their defense, Todd Bowles, defensively minded head coach, they're as sound as ever. And that doesn't feel great. They can throw the football. They've got a quarterback who has proven this year that he's better at throwing the football than he's ever been in his career. And our pass defense is 30th or worst in almost every major category that you can assess. So it feels like if we're being realistic here, the numbers stack up in such a way that it is unrealistic to expect a win. But I agree with you, Jimmy. The roster, the talent, it is there. I've seen this exact team whoop that exact team in September. So I know it's doable. And I need to find a way to believe that it is accessible by this team.
215-592-9494. Are there reasons for positivity? Have we gone too far to the negative side with this team with a playoff game coming up this Monday night? And can this team kind of flip a switch? Can they, maybe if not get back to the team we thought they'd be, get back to a team that at least can compete in the playoffs and isn't going to get boat raced out of it like I think a lot of Eagles fans think it will. 215-592-9494. We got a big show for you today. Ruben Noir Jr. will be in studio with us at 7 o'clock for 3 hours for the full show. That'll be great. We got Howard Eskin 8 o'clock. Mike Quick, 8:40. A little life advice at 9:10. Maybe twist on that. Times here is 9:45. Your calls until then. We want to get as much call action as we can. Talking about this team right now. Can we flip this around? Can this team flip this around? And have we maybe gone too far to the negative side? 215-592-9494. It's the morning show. Oh, yes. Plus, coming up next, we'll give you a little taste of some positivity we got yesterday. Because yesterday we did get one particularly notable positive call. I want to see if there are more Nicks out there. We'll hear Nick next and a lot more. It's the morning show. We'll be right back.